This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV. Our guest today is Steven Heck. Steve is a graduate student in marine biology at Northeastern University and has spent several years now doing research in the harbor, first as an intern with the Marine Department, and then more recently as an academic, I guess. Steve, what brought you to Nantucket? How did you get involved in the Nantucket marine world, so to speak?
So originally, I graduated from Middlebury College up in Vermont in February of 2010, and that spring I was out in Colorado skiing and at night applying to jobs, and I saw a job posting, out in Nantucket, and I'd never really been here before. And it was a project that focused on restoring, the bay scallop population in Nantucket Harbor and Nantucket Island. And I saw that, and it was kind of cool, intersection between, benefiting, the natural environment and local communities. And I think I sent Tara Riley an application and cover letter, within an hour of her posting it, and then I pestered her for about 2 months because the application wasn't due for a number of months, and it worked out. And I hadn't really been out here before, as I said, and that summer I worked on the bay scallop restoration project with Tara Riley and.
Who's the town biologist?
Who's the town shellfish biologist? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's been a fantastic opportunity. I worked out there, worked out here on that project that summer, and then I was back that following year from May through December, and then after that again for another warm season working for Tara. And last summer was the first summer, there was a little bit of a break, and I was up at Northeastern. Working on a sea scallop population dynamics project up there. And then last fall I came out here again to work on a project funded by the Nantucket Land Council and Nantucket Shellfish Association. So it's been a really awesome opportunity to be able to be involved.
Aren't you working on two different projects, or have worked on two different research projects, one having to do with predators and one having to do with algae?
Yeah, so the extent that I've worked on the project with Lingbia was
that being the algae.
Sorry, yeah, it's a blue-green algae that showed up here in 2008, I believe, for the first time. And the past couple of years, we've seen really unprecedented blooms of Lingbia. So the extent that I've worked with that, I've worked with Peter Boyce on his annual benthic dive surveys a few times. And then also there was a little pilot project looking at how, what effect Lingbia has on eelgrass, in small mesocosm, small tanks. And so that was fodder for what the group at Northeastern will continue to work on later this summer and fall, along with Peter Boyce as well. And then, so the other project that I've been focusing most on this summer and last fall a little bit is a project looking at how habitat complexity, so the density of eelgrass and height and those sorts of parameters influences survivorship of bay scallops and growth. And we're also using video arrays, as you know, to look at what species of predators are actually preying on bay scallops in different areas and with what frequency. There's some kinks to be worked out in that video system, but it's coming along. We're hoping to be able to get footage, 24-hour footage, which we can now do, but the angles need to be tweaked a little bit in areas of higher eelgrass density. And so actually yesterday was the first day that I went back to, let me go back for a moment. So we have 12 different sites around the harbor, and we have scallops that are out at each site, actually tethered to a small frame. And we put those out last week. So they've been out about 7 days at the moment. And, so yesterday was the first day that I went back out with some help from a few other divers to look and see what was alive still. And, and then today I'll finish that up for the first round. But we'll keep those out there for at least a few more weeks to look at
What,
growth
what
rates
do you
as well.
what do you expect to find? What is? I mean, I know you may not find it, but what are you sort of expecting to find?
So that's kind of a hard question, I think, to answer, especially in the harbor nowadays because things are changing so much. But previous literature has shown, that in less patchy, or more continuous eelgrass beds, you have higher survival of bay scallops. But there's kind of a trade-off. A few papers have discussed the trade-off between growth and survival, depending on the area. And so it'll be interesting to see if that plays out the same way here. Most of that literature was published further south, some in Long Island, but mostly down in the Carolinas and further south of that. And so, up here we have some of the same predators as further south, but there is a distinct assemblage of, predators in the community out there. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to find out what's going on.
What kind of predators are we talking about?
What kind of predators?
yeah.
What kind of predators are there?
So people give you all sorts of answers as to what preys on a bay scallop. That includes likely green crabs, blue crabs.
Well, you've got young scallops, and then you've got adult scallops.
Definitely.
So
So they're definitely distinct predators based on the size as well. That's a great point. So the smaller size classes, there are black-fingered mud crabs that likely can prey upon them, or that can prey upon them. Not likely, but they do. Then you have green crabs, blue crabs, lady crabs. You have the two species of whelk, both channeled whelk as well as knobbed whelk, and a number of different fish species that can crunch bay scallops with their jaws. And so one of the questions that I'm most interested in getting at is whether or not the dominant predators of bay scallops are native species or invasive species, because as you know, we have a increasing presence of green crabs and Asian shore crabs.
And they're not native.
They're not native, yeah. And so the results of the study may indicate whether or not it might be appropriate to actually institute some sort of invasive species control program in the harbor, as a couple other areas on the Cape and Martha's Vineyard have.
They have done that.
They do, relatively small scale, but
I think it'd be quite a job.
Yeah,
especially once the population has taken hold.
Definitely, and I think the trick would be to figure out a cost-effective way of doing that.
It's interesting, just on the subject of invasive species, not relevant to the marine world, but somebody was standing on my lawn, which I don't fertilize, and looks like it, and there are tufts of a grass that's a different color than the rest of the junk that's in my lawn. And he said, "You know where this came from? It first appeared at Sankaty Golf Course, presumably because it's English, of English origin, presumably off the shoes of somebody who had played golf in England and then came to Sankaty, and it took hold at Sankaty. And now it's blown, the seeds have blown in the northeast winds over the whole island."
That's really wild.
That's crazy. But it does illustrate what can happen with an invasive species.
Definitely.
And how it can be purely accidental. And how did Lingbia get here?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And did it come on the bottom of some boat?
Yeah.
Or what?
Yeah, it's probably a likely scenario, or in the ballast water or something of a larger vessel.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about this research rings your chimes? What is it you enjoy about it?
So I think one of the components that I love about what we've been doing, especially this summer, is that it really parallels the work that Tara Riley's been doing. And so we're working on this project with two professors at Northeastern, John Grabowski and Randall Hughes, as well as Peter Boyce of Ryan Mitchell Association and Tara Riley, who's the, as I told you before, or as we mentioned before, the town shellfish biologist of Nantucket. And so it really parallels the restoration project in that there is, if you can figure out where scallops have the highest survival rates and highest growth rates, that might be an area where you might release scallop larvae into. And also, if you're able to identify whether or not the species that prey upon scallops most are invasives or natives, you might be able to allocate resources towards actually instituting some sort of program to control them, or not, if if they're not really.
But at least you have the choice to
problem.
make.
Exactly, and you have the information there at your fingertips. And so, I think the potential benefits to that restoration effort, I think, are what are most fascinating to me. I mean, personally, I think finding questions to answer that are not only ecologically interesting, but have tangible management implications for fisheries and conservation efforts, I think are the best kind of questions to answer, especially in today's world where you have a finite amount of resources, and you should probably try to solve some of the problems that are out there.
What are your aspirations when you finish your education? Do you want to do research? Do you want to do applied science? Do you want to teach?
It's a great question. So I finished up at Northeastern actually through a program called the 3Cs program. I did a master's through that program, and I worked closely with John Grabowski as well as Steve Vollmer up at Northeastern University. And so this fall I'm actually going down to Stony Brook University, and I'll be working at their lab in Southampton in Eastern Long Island to continue the same sort of work for a PhD program. And so in terms of aspirations beyond that, I really would like to continue working on applied ecological research, restoration ecology that focuses, as I said before, on questions that are ecologically interesting, but also have very powerful management and conservation implications. And so working for an environmental organization, doing research for them would be one of my ideal scenarios, I think.
Great. Well, Steve Heck, thank you very much. Hope
Thanks
you'll
very
come
much for
back
having me.
when you
Appreciate
come
it.
back when you have some results to talk about.
Definitely,
And,
that sounds great.
I think
Look
what
forward to
you're
it.
doing is great.
Thanks very much, Dan. Appreciate
care.
that.